Hello, Wonderland on Points family. We are so excited for you to hear today's episode with two-time returning guest, Katherine Fan. She dives into everything you need to know to plan an extraordinary trip to Taiwan. But before we start the episode, we have some very exciting news, and that is that Katherine has partnered with us to do a giveaway, and this is a really good one, you guys. Katherine wants to give away 3 different 3-day passes for 30 attractions in the Taipei area. So these are essentially a city pass that for 3 days will get you entry into anything on this list of 30 attractions. And the best part is, it never expires, so you have plenty of time to listen to the episode, plan your trip, and then go use the amazing pass that you've just won. So the way that you're going to enter this, you are going to head over to our Instagram page. I have a link to the reel in the show notes, but you can also find us on Instagram at Wonderland on Points Podcast. You're going to follow the rules in that Instagram post, and you are going to be entered to win one of these passes. We are giving them away to 3 people, and the winner will be decided June 15th. So you have some time to enter if you are listening to this today when it comes out on June the 9th. The other exciting news is that Katherine, who is an incredible journalist, has decided to launch her Substack, and we really want you guys to go check that out. So we are going to give you 3 extra entries just for heading over to her Substack and signing up there. It's completely free. It's pointsfortherapy.substack.com. And again, you can find the link for that in the show notes. And Katherine wanted everybody to know that if you win this pass and head to Taipei with it, her recommendations for a few things that you must see with this pass are the Maokong Gondola, the Yelio Geo Park, and the Taipei Hakka Tea Culture Museum. So those are just a few ideas to get you started, but we cannot wait for you to hear this entire episode and then make sure you run over and enter that giveaway, because in addition to this incredible points and miles trip, having these passes could really just take your adventure to the next level. All right, let's get into the episode.
Ever pinch pennies all year for that one family vacation only to feel the budget blues afterwards? If so, I was just like you. After 3 vacationless years, I stumbled on credit card rewards travel and cracked the code to amazing vacations that I could actually afford.
Welcome to Wonderland on Points. In this podcast, you will discover how opening credit cards strategically can save you thousands on travel. We're not just dreamers anymore. We're 2 adventurous moms turning dreams into reality. Join us as we spill all the points and miles secrets.
And contrary to popular belief, you don't have to spend $1 million to earn 1,000,000 points. Traveling on credit card points isn't reserved for those with overflowing bank accounts. It's for everyday people like you and me, learning to turn routine expenses into free travel.
Consider us your points travel guides. This is Wonderland on Points. Let the adventure begin. Welcome back, everybody. Today, we have a special guest with us. We have Katherine Fan, who is a credit card correspondent over at Business Insider. She is also a 2-time guest on the show. If you go back through our episode catalog, you can find her in December of 2024. The episode was released. She shared with us an incredible trip to Antarctica, which was just unbelievable, once in a lifetime kind of journey. So you guys go check out that episode. But today she's going to share with us a place even more special to her, and that is Taiwan. Katherine is now a dual citizen with the US and Taiwan. Congratulations, Katherine. I know that was a really intense process, and you did it. You achieved it.
Thank you so much for having me back. It's lovely to talk with you all again. You are so right. Taiwan is really special to my heart. fun fact, my first flights were actually to Taiwan, and I spent my first birthday there. I remember nothing about it,
Aw.
but Taiwan is very near and dear to my heart. It's where my parents were born and grew up. It's where most of my extended family lived for almost all of my life. And it's where I moved when I was 10. So I lived in Taiwan from age 10 to age 19. But since I was born in the US, I didn't have citizenship there. And if you don't apply for it when you're a kid, then it is a little bit more of a grueling process to get it when you're an adult. But it was really important and special to me, not only because it's very near and dear to my heart for family reasons, but also because my parents have lived there up until fairly recently. And it was really nice to have the option to stay longer if I wanted to.
Mm.
So even when I was growing up, if you overstay your visa, you have to leave.
Oh,
So one
no.
year, actually, I think when I was 18 or so, I happened to miss my visa deadline by a couple of days. So it's okay, you can stay, you just have to get out and come back. And my mom said, instead of flying back to the US, what if you just leave and I buy a cheap travel package and you take your little brother? So there's an
Aw.
18-year-old girl and her 8-year-old brother went to Singapore. I think that was the first time for both of us. And she bought a cheap little travel package. So we did a hop over to Singapore. It's about 3 to 4 hours, I think. And we had a also very cheap hotel. This is way before we knew anything about airline miles and points for flights or anything like that. And we wandered around. I remember his number one complaint was, why do we have to keep going shopping? So I compromised. We went to all the malls by day, and then I took him to the nighttime zoo, and he thought that was really amazing. So, yeah, that was
What
one of
a
my
good
first.
big sister.
I mean, I was just excited for a free trip, and he was my favorite brother at the time, so that worked out well.
I love it at the time.
Good time. You know how it goes. Bigger families, you can rotate your favorites.
100%. I usually people just don't say that out loud. So I applaud
That's
your
right.
transparency. It's just
It's
between
very sweet.
us
I give
and
them all credit.
thousands of other people. She
That's right.
loves her family equally, guys. I feel like I feel like Taiwan really came on my radar last year. I think it was last year. Time is weird in my brain, but I feel like everyone was flying this inaugural flight to Taipei last year. Do you remember that? I feel like everyone was talking about it. So many people I knew, I felt like were on the flight. I don't even remember what the route was, but it was just a big one that everybody was talking about. And that is when that really was on the radar for me. And I've done a little bit of research into traveling there and I'm so interested in it. But I do feel like it's not often talked about. Like even within all of the Asian countries that people kind of like bucket list and talk about regularly, I'm not sure I hear about it nearly as much. So I'm really excited for you to tell our audience all about the reasons that it's special and the things that they can do and the ways that they can get there. And it sounds like it's a really affordable points destination.
Yeah, so that's something I really love about Taiwan. There's so much overlap between the points and miles space and Taiwan. And that's actually a really cool thing. I think as Taiwan has evolved, I used to never be able to fly there direct. I'd have to go from the US to Japan or Korea and then take a hopper flight over. Well, it's not a hopper flight, but
Wow.
there weren't very many direct flights. And that's because there wasn't as much direct interest at the time. They existed. You just had to pay more for those flights. So
Hmm.
it was almost always cheaper for me to take connections. But Taiwan has really blown up in the last couple of decades. That's actually the reason my family moved back to Taiwan. So their semiconductor industry really blew up. You'll still see a lot about that in the news these days. TSMC in this race toward AI and artificial intelligence dominance in the space. TSMC and other companies like that have really, really grown Taiwan's presence in the global awareness. And also for points and miles people, we benefit because there are more flights, which also means more points and miles opportunities for redemption. And Taiwan is just a fantastic little gorgeous spot to stay. It's super, super safe. My mom is actually a very cautious person, but she used to stick me on an intercity bus 90 minutes one way to go to Taipei for violin lessons every 2 weeks. And as someone who was never allowed to be alone with adults in a room or anything like that, I was like, you're doing what? But she'd grown up going to school with her sister on the city bus when they were 4 and 5, 5 and 6, little bitty. And
Wow.
as many East Asian countries are, it's incredibly safe. People are very respectful toward children. Like you'll regularly see children taking public transit to get to and from school. There aren't any such things as private city buses or anything like that, school buses. So it's really fascinating. Taiwan is so safe for solo women travelers, for children, for families. It's also very family friendly, as I've heard from a lot of parent friends. Many countries are more friendly than the US when it comes to taking a baby around or whatever. And so Taiwan is one of those as well. Feel free to take your children there, they'll be very safe. Traffic is a little wild, but that's kind of the case for many places. Crosswalks are very clearly delineated. They have lights with countdown numbers and walk, don't walk. There's English signs everywhere. So it's a very
Okay.
accessible place if you want to make a stopover on a Greater Asia trip, or even if you just want to take your children and make a destination of it. I'm all for that.
I was just trying to imagine like kids taking a public bus in America. Like you will never see them again. I just like it's so refreshing to know that there are still places in the world that exist where your kids can be safe when you're not with them.
It takes a little bit of awareness as well in general. I would say, the US is still very designed, like especially the suburbs are very designed to protect children. So it is very important. It's a good place to practice that type of awareness. So, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we heard a little bit about the visa requirements for you growing up when you were living there, but you had US citizenship. What about for those of us visiting today? What do we need to do to make sure we're prepared, to make sure any visa requirements are met, just for us to go on, say a week or two vacation?
So, the good news is if you are a US traveler trying to enter Taiwan as a tourist or a short term visitor, you don't need a visa at all if you stay for less than 90 days. In fact,
Wonderful.
I think I had been there for more than 3 years without leaving the country at the time. So, don't let my visa stories scare you. Um, Different visa. But yes, so it's super easy to go there and it makes it one of those awesome spots where if you're practicing your around the world trips, if you're practicing figuring out how stopovers and layovers work, Taiwan is a fantastic place. Just hop off the plane and hang out for a few days, a few hours. Even if you have a long layover, you can just leave the airport. And it's really easy to physically leave the airport. My only complaint was um, you're going to need basically a Metro card to get on the MRT. So the MRT is a mass rapid transit rail. So subway, very similar to what you'd find in South Korea, in Hong Kong, in Singapore. Same sort of thing. Colorful lines. They're not too complicated. You can go straight from the airport up to Taipei or to the high-speed rail, which is a bullet train basically with, the
Ooh.
high-speed magnetic cool things. If you've got family members who love trains, they'll be very
Oh,
keen
and I
on this
do.
and be able to say things I don't know about. But you can pretty much get anywhere up and down the west coast of Taiwan, which is it's used to take about 9 hours to drive north to south. So that's kind of my mental idea of it, but it's not a very large place. It's about the size of New Jersey landmass wise. And so you can hop on the high speed rail train and get all the way from North Taiwan, which is where the capital Taipei is, all the way down to Kaohsiung, which now has direct flights on United from the US, I believe.
Wow.
So it's really becoming a happening place. So you can take that bullet train north or south. You're going along the west coast that way. Or you can go down the east coast and take the more traditional train route. It's not as fast, but it's really scenic. Some of the most beautiful and memorable places in Taiwan are on the east coast. I do recommend avoiding it during typhoon season because that side is not as protected by mountains and you will run into storms. But it's honestly, they're not really catastrophes that come up out of nowhere. So you can easily plan around stormy season. And the west side of Taiwan doesn't get nearly as much extreme weather because it's protected by a central mountain range.
Okay, any idea, just out of curiosity, if it took 9 hours to drive, what can the bullet train do? Like, how fast is it to get like from top to bottom on that train?
Yeah, so some of the reason it took that long when I was younger is because traffic is a lot, so it's a little slower as well. The bullet train you can get from the north end to the south end of the route in about 3.5 hours or less.
That is so cool. So you can
It's
see a
so fun.
lot in one trip in this country.
Yeah. And I've been on many bullet trains by now in my life. They're fantastic. I enjoy it every time. But it really is one of the smoothest rides you'll ever take. Like, short of flying when there's no turbulence, it's kind of amazing to think of how fast you're going and how little resistance there is, even at the speeds you're going at.
I want to take a bullet train someday so bad. So bad. It sounds exciting. And I'm not even like a train person. Mary Ellen's son, on the other hand, I think would just die and go to heaven.
It's true. I have watched
Die,
many a
go to heaven, and
documentaries.
come back and still be on the train.
I definitely want to experience a bullet train when I go to Asia. And I wish we had them over here, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Okay, so what's the time difference from even just from the west coast of the US to Taiwan? Is jet lag, what do you do to overcome jet lag? Do you have any tips or tricks for dealing with that?
Yeah. So I grew up thinking that jet lag was what I felt every time I went to Taiwan. And it took me many, many years and traveling to Europe and Australia to realize, oh, most jet lag isn't as intense. So, yes, US to Asia jet lag is very painful. I grew up mostly on Central Time when I'm in the US. So it's usually a 13 or 14-hour time difference, depending on whether or not we're in daylight savings. From the East Coast, it's 14:15. From the West Coast, it's 11:12, I believe. So, yeah, pretty much night and day, the phrase is made for that. And I have realized also as I get older, the older I get, the more painful jet lag is for me. So it's really, it's one of those things I'm actually struggling with more as I age. But someone turned me onto this app called Time Shifter. I actually don't use it all that much. My mom, I offered it to her and she started using it and she uses it all the time now. So
Mm.
Time Shifter, I believe you get your first trip free, which I think is a really cool way to do it. But this app, you put in your flight numbers and your dates, and it tells you when you should sleep on the plane, what you should do. They'll say things like, you should be awake right now, but put on shades because your body shouldn't be exposed to that light. Or, put yourself to sleep, avoid caffeine at these times, take caffeine now. It's kind of amazing. So check it out. And then you can either get a monthly or annual membership, I believe, or you can just pay per trip. This is
Well,
not a
Time
sponsor.
Shifter, we're
No,
coming for you to sponsor this podcast,
right.
just so they know we will be in their email shortly. I
I
have never heard of this. Brilliant.
It's
Absolutely
brilliant. I
brilliant.
actually really like their payment plan, and I'm gonna plug this a little bit. Do sponsor them, but because it's either $9.99 per plan or $24.99 per year. So if you don't travel very often, you don't feel like you're overpaying for something, and if you do
Yeah.
travel quite often, you feel like you're getting a great deal. So these are the kinds of nerdy things I care about because I feel like this is an app that is really well designed for people. But yeah, so I have used it once, I believe, and I'm the kind of person who likes to just wing it. And I don't really take caffeine, so I felt like it was a little less relevant to me. But my mom says it's been a game changer for the coffee and the cover your eyes now, take a nap now tips and things like that.
Yeah, I'm taking my mom and my daughter to England, and obviously this is not the same as jet lag going all the way to Taiwan, but I think this might be valuable for all of us, just because we're going to hit the ground running as soon as we get there at 6 a.m. It might be good for us to be doing what we can to mitigate the symptoms. So I'm very excited to try this out.
Definitely try it out. I really like making the most of my time on the ground as well. So I typically also like arriving early because I think it's easier to push through that way. The good thing about traveling to Taiwan is I almost never feel it quite as bad going there. Coming back is really painful for me, but then that's a problem for work in my normal life. So the good thing is there are a lot of flights to Taiwan that land at very reasonable times. You either land pretty late in the evening, so you go straight to bed, or you can land really early in the morning and you just push through. The first day is not nearly as bad if you aren't arriving, say, like at high noon or in 3 a.m. or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, these are all extremely helpful tips for sure. We kind of glossed over how to get there, and we're not going to dig into that too much because everybody is capable of doing these redemption searches. But I did want to mention that I saw nonstop economy flights from all over the West Coast, but also from Chicago, you guys. That seems like a huge deal to me. A
Mhm.
nonstop from Chicago, what a game changer for those of us that are in the Midwest.
Yes, big game changer. I think one of the easiest things also about traveling, if you haven't been to Asia, period, I actually really like getting to the West Coast and then doing a long trip. I hate having to get off of a longest flight and then get on another flight for
Mm,
3 to 5 hours. But my preferred way to do it, if you do stop, go to the West Coast, fly from there, and you often get the best deals as well. But you're right, they do have a lot of flights from pretty much you just look where there are large populations of people who have correlations to Taiwan. So, for instance, Starlux, which is a relatively new airline that is based in Taiwan, just announced nonstop flights between Taiwan and Phoenix. And that's
mm-hmm.
because a lot of those TSMC workers are now at a foundry in somewhere in Arizona. So, for them, having those direct flights is very convenient. But Delta has been doing a really big push for more Taiwan routes lately as well. So I believe Seattle to Taipei is one of the biggest routes that's growing quickly.
Mm.
LA and San Francisco are kind of you know, they're the classics. They're the ones I grew up flying the most. United SFO to Taipei is kind of my most flown route, probably in internationally is probably my most flown route in my life. But I believe they used to have, I know I've flown Newark to, I think, to Taipei before.
Okay.
So there are some East Coast, but I would say personally, I still suggest flying across the US first and then breaking it up if you're
Mm-hmm.
not doing one of those long distance flights from Chicago or
Yeah.
Dallas, Houston.
For sure. Guys, that Phoenix to Taipei Starlux route can be booked with Alaska miles. I'm just saying,
Right.
anyone who's speculatively transferring over some Amex points in anticipation of this June 30th end date, maybe you're going to Taipei with those. I don't know.
That's right. People are really smart about redemptions in Taiwan. I have been to few places in the world where I have had to fight for as many points and miles, hotel spaces, and stuff like that.
Mm,
I'm going to throw out a generalization here, but my people really like a good deal. And there is an entire Facebook group that is all in Chinese for North American Chinese speakers who are into points and miles. And these people are on top of the deals. So if you are planning a trip, find a hotel very quickly and book it. And I do have some recommendations for my favorites in Taipei. If you're flying to Taiwan, by far the easiest way to get there right now is still to fly into Taipei. There are two airports. The main one you'll think of is actually about 40 minutes outside of Taipei itself. It's in a province called Taoyuan. But like I said, it's super easy to get from that airport into the city. You'll hop on a MRT and you really won't even notice which province you're in. There's also a smaller, it's still an international airport, but it's much smaller and it's usually for intra-Asia flights. It's the Songshan Airport and it's TSA is the airport code. And then there are now small airports, I believe, in Taichung, which is in the central part of the island, and then Kaohsiung, which is down in the southern tip. But I recommend not flying. I definitely recommend taking the bullet train if you're going to try to visit some of these other spots. But if you do go to Taipei, some of my favorite hotels there I actually really love the Sheraton because it averages about 24,000 to 30,000 Marriott points per night.
wow.
And it's a little bit dated, but it's super central. It's a 7-minute walk to the Taipei main train station, which is one of the most central and kind of the heart of the city. Everything radiates from that point. And I've really liked it. I've stayed there when I was going to my cousin's wedding. I've stayed there for our New Year's because it's almost always a really good deal. And it's kind of old school Taipei luxury. So again, it's pretty dated in some ways, but they have one of those old school lobbies where the sides are open and you can look down into the fancy dining area. You've got a little piano and you see kind of all the elite people of Taipei passing through. It's kind of a mess. Sometimes it's just like crowds of people, hordes of extended family, but it's a really fun way to kind of get a little bit of a peek into what locals consider to be fancy. because the Hyatts, the W, they're all fun, but they're definitely much more Westerner occupied. And they are also in a trendier, newer part of the city.
Okay.
Um, so even though those are really nice, you're getting the same Hyatt W experience you would get anywhere else. Whereas this one, I feel like has a lot of personality.
I love this recommendation. This is fun.
Yeah, so I almost always stay there at least once. In the last few years I've been there, whenever I stay on my own, I'll usually do at least a night or two there. But you really do have to book it in advance. I have never been to another city, I think, in the world where I consistently am like, there are no points and miles spaces available anymore. And it's not because they don't exist, but they do just book up. People love going out on the weekends. And a lot of people will commute into the city just to have, a sort of staycation or something like that. A lot of people live with family or have roommates still. Cost of living there can be very high relative to people's salaries. So going into the city for a night escape is really popular. So I think that's kind of where the high demand goes.
Makes a lot of sense. That is a pretty low redemption for Marriott, too.
It's so low. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like courtyard levels sometimes. Oh, speaking of
Amazing.
which, the courtyards overseas apparently are quite fancy. I'm too tied to the Sheraton, so I haven't done it. But I guess the courtyards in Taipei are really fancy and they kind of are priced accordingly by Taiwan standards. But they're still a very good deal on points and miles. But
Okay.
look pretty swanky based on the photos I've seen. And they are also often in trendy newer parts of the city that are developing. I have a
Okay.
fun story actually about the bullet train.
Okay, guys, we're taking a quick break to tell you about this episode's sponsor, Card Pointers. So, we've already told you guys a lot about some of the features like the best card wizard and tracking your offers and activating your offers with Card Pointers, but it really helps you keep organized in this big game of points and miles.
Yeah, 100%. One of the most basic things that it does, but the most helpful thing that it does is keeping track of your 524 status. And here's the thing, guys, I don't want to use 10,000 different apps to keep myself organized. There are other apps that have this feature, but they do not have the other features that Card Pointers has. So for me, the fact that I can do all of this in the exact same app, I don't have to be jumping around. I can look and see what my 524 status is right there in the Card Pointers app. To me, that is such a massive, massive benefit because I truly do not want any more apps than I have to. My phone is full enough.
Yeah, all in one place. That is so helpful. And guys, remember 524, if you aren't familiar with that, that is a rule that specifically speaks to Chase Bank. They don't want you to open 5 new personal credit cards within 24 months. These are the kind of things that you have to be aware of for the long game of points and miles and to keep this hobby going. So the fact that Card Pointers can track that for us is super helpful. If you want to check it out, go on over to cardpointers.com/Wonderland on points. As a friend of the podcast, you get 30% off. You can do a lifetime subscription or you can try it out for just a year and see how it all works. So check it out, cardpointers.com/Wonderland on points.
Okay, guys, let's get back to the episode.
I once took the bullet train to go see my dad. I live about 2 stops south of the Taipei main stop. Got on the wrong train, took one that took me straight to the central city in Taiwan.
Oh no.
And it was the last train of the night. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll see you in the morning, Dad. And I was like, okay, fine. It's not a big deal. But what are my options? And I found a Moxie there. And I stayed at the Moxie for, I think, 13,000 points or something like that. And it was really cool. I took the little MRT from the Taichung stop over to the Moxie and had a wonderful stay. So if you leave Taipei, you can get even better redemptions. If you find points and miles hotels, Marriott has the biggest footprint. I haven't seen a ton outside of the Grand Hyatt. There's a little bit of Hilton and a little bit of Hyatt, but almost all of that is in Taipei.
Okay, very good to know.
What's your favorite tool for looking, since it is difficult to get these hotel reservations on points? Are you a rooms.aero person, or what tool do you suggest people look for availability?
Yeah, if you are going to a place that doesn't have a ton of points and miles hotels, actually, I use good old maps first. I figure out where I want to stay, and then I see if there's points and miles options there. So I'm a lot less of a fancy redemption kind of person. I'm big on the real estate tried and true premise of location, location, location. So I actually use hotels.com a ton. So
Okay.
this is where I would use something like hotels.com, Airbnb if I had a family and had to make sure they had enough space. I think Taiwan's a lot more lax on how many people per room, not like Europe where they're very, very strict
Mm-hmm.
about it for legal reasons. But I would always say check the map first and make sure you're somewhere accessible, because even though transport is very easy in many foreign countries, especially compared to the US, it's just not worth spending extra time getting to and from when you could be somewhere more central. And much as I love points and miles, you often will get the best deals and the more authentic stay, finding something maybe still through a major platform, but making sure that you're where you want to be.
Yeah.
But if I am looking for something like I was that night when I was stuck in Taichung, I'm a big Marriott girl just because of sheer numbers. So I checked that first. And I also knew that Marriott had the most properties in Taiwan and many other places. If I'm not picky about location, I usually go with whichever one has the best deals or I have the most points in that system.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm really, really looking for the best possible experience, I'll build a whole trip around where I stay.
Oh,
So I have,
absolutely.
I think Max My Points has actually been my favorite for looking for it that way. I have gotten the Waldorf Astoria when I still had Hilton free nights saved up from the pandemic. I used that to book the Los Cabos Pedregal location for 2 nights
Oh,
because kind of a weird number of nights, but I certainly wasn't about to drop $1,500 for more nights. And I didn't have all that many Hilton points. So Max My Point helped me figure out which days. I think I went on a Tuesday to Thursday and it just matched my flights alongside of that.
That's perfect. So if we're talking, let's say someone's coming for 7 to 10 days, I assume you wouldn't really want to do less than a week in this area. But what are your top cities to visit? Like if somebody's mapping out an itinerary of places they don't want to miss, which cities, how many days in each is kind of the minimum?
Yeah, you know what? I will actually be fair and say I would love if people stayed longer, but I think you could easily get at least a little glimpse of Taiwan in 1 to 5 days. So I'll even give you like a 24-hour, 12 to 24-hour long layover, quick run. I would say get off the plane. You can check your bags at the airport. You can find some lockers and leave your luggage. So again, safety. It's nice. So you just put your luggage somewhere. And you can also take it into the city and store it at the main station. They have lockers there as well. But just put your stuff somewhere where you feel safe. It'll probably take you about 40 minutes to get into the city from the airport. And you can just hop on the MRT. If you did a 1 day or 12 to 15 hour stay, hop on the MRT, do everything on the MRT. Um, I actually tried out guided tours this past trip because I was bored and I wanted to be able to tell people this is what you can do if you decide to come to Taiwan. And so it's pretty easy to buy guided tour passes, and
Oh,
there's a hop on hop off bus. You pick up the tickets at the main station. I believe it comes with a card you can use for MRT passes for that day, and you just activate it. You can go anywhere you want. I went to an art museum. I went to There's a very famous National Palace Museum that's normally kind of hard to get to, but if you on the hop on hop off bus, it's so easy to get to. You just ride it. You go into the mountains. You see one of the oldest, most historic hotels in Taiwan. It's up on a hill, and then past that is the National Palace Museum. So when the KMT fled to China in the 1940s, they took like 5,000 artifacts from ancient China. So all of those are housed in this museum because this gets a little political, but they were hoping to make Taiwan the new seat of China, they wanted to shift the capital from Beijing to Taipei. So they brought all of these artifacts with them so you can see 5,000 years worth of history. And I guess every
wow.
Italian grows up going at least once. There's a famous jade cabbage. There are these 3-footed pots that are thousands of years old, but they're one of the oldest stable structures, like Now I'm telling you all the stuff I learned when I was 10. But you just see all of these cool
It's coming
artifacts.
back from history class.
That's right. I'm like 10, walking around wondering when lunch is and hearing all these things. But it's really fascinating. You see these amazing scrolls and paintings, um, and there's a little garden next to it now. So I just did all of this in January because I was like, I want to get the full tourist experience. So that's what I would recommend if you did that for even just a day. Do that. Then go hit up a night market, get some food, chill somewhere. You'll have a great time. But if you did 1 to 3 days, find somewhere in Taipei, Sheraton, and just do little day excursions. Jet lag will kick in at some point, so you'll be tired. But especially if you're planning a larger Asia trip, Taiwan is a really good place to stop because you're on the eastmost side, I guess. It's kind of at the entrance to East Asia, so you can get over your jet lag for a couple of days. You'll have good food anywhere you go. And then you can go on to Thailand or wherever else you plan to go, and you'll be much more rested. And the 7-Elevens are fantastic, like you've heard in Japan and elsewhere. But you can do literally anything from a 7-Eleven. You can get really good snacks. Children love it. You can get tea, eggs. You can pay your bills. You can get your mail there. So 7-Elevens are definitely worth stopping and seeing. And
So
then if
funny
you were
because
to
they're
do
just garbage here. Like the
there's
7-Eleven
nothing,
here,
yeah,
I
you're
avoid
like
them.
from here. And then over there, you're like, they actually call it Club 7 because 7-Elevens are open 24/7. You can buy liquor. So people
Club
party
7.
outside of 7-Eleven. But people are also really chill for the most part about how they party. It's nothing like the college town I grew up in.
Amazing.
So I don't know that I would recommend renting a car unless you are generally pretty good with driving anywhere. For those of us who live in the Midwest, yeah, no problem. It's not necessarily unsafe or anything like that. It's just that it is so easy to get around. I would probably only recommend a car if you wanted to go somewhere pretty far off the beaten path, or if you've got multiple kids with you, or older people that you don't want to have to take on and off of public transit. But you can do guided tours very easily. You can hire guides to drive you around. You can take the trains. It's really easy to commute around there. And there are lots of people who never, ever own a car in their whole lives.
Okay.
They might have a scooter and they take the train, they take the subway. If you have longer in Taiwan, I would say take a chance to visit the East Coast. So Hualien is where the famous Taroko Gorge is. It's nice to have a car for that. But there's hiking trails. You can do anything from super easy, like a little walk, to there's pretty hardcore hiking in Taiwan if you are into that as well. People definitely go up into the mountains, and there are some very technical routes. So there's a little bit of everything for anyone who's outdoorsy.
Yeah, I saw that there are several beautiful national parks in Taiwan. So I didn't know if you had any recommendations or, a highlight of the best national park to visit. If you can have time to go see one, what's the go-to spot?
Yeah, so you'll often hear people talk about Sun Moon Lake or Ali Sen or let's see. The whole central area, there are a few really nice spots. It's very easy to get tours to those spots. If you're only there for even just 24 to 72 hours, though, there's a spot I personally really love, and it's not quite a national park, but it's kind of up in the mountains. It's called right now. It's called Jiufen. So Jiufen. You should be able to, I forgot to say, there's also Uber in Taipei. I think it's in several of the other cities as well, but you can Uber there. So just fire up your Uber app and it'll get you most places you want to go. But this spot I love because it's about 30 minutes from the heart of Taipei. If you take a bus, but you can hike up into this it used to be a mining community, I believe, and now it's been converted into a touristy spot, but it's kind of a locals tourist spot. So you can see it's very well known for tea houses. You're just basically hiking up
Ooh.
this narrow little trail up a little winding mountainside neighborhood sort of, and there's tons of street food all along the way. It's actually quite crowded. Then you'll pop out at different spots and you see amazing scenery, and there's a tea house. There's so many tea houses there. I'm not even a big tea drinker, but you go for the experience and it's awesome.
For
I would
sure.
also recommend there's a little gondola section of the MRT. You take it all the way to the Zoo, which is the last stop on the brown line of the MRT. But from there, you use your same Metro card, you walk a couple hundred yards, and then you can go take these little gondolas, which are just like cable cars for, I think there may be 4 stops, but you see a very different view as well. You kind of see a little bit of the northeast part of the northern tip of the island. And then you can also get out there and see different little tea houses, walk around. It's pretty awesome.
That is so fun. And it's all just included in the public transportation system. Like,
That's
that's
right.
just
Also,
part of
public
it.
transit. I don't think they've raised prices since I was 10. It is so cheap there. You start at, I think, 60 cents, thereabouts. And it's one of the cheaper, it's one of the more expensive types of public transit in Taipei because the bus is a little cheaper.
Wow.
Anyway,
And you mentioned that Uber actually runs there. So it's not called something different. You don't need a separate app. You just get your old traditional Uber that's already on your phone.
yeah, there are a lot of countries that actually use Uber, and there are a lot that use both. So I think the main chat app in Taiwan is called Line. You can definitely call a taxi through Line. But something I really like about Uber is you can use Uber to call local taxis. So you can choose, do I want an Uber driver? Or do I want a local taxi? I have used both, no problem. And if you happen to get a taxi, they get paid through Uber anyway. So you can get the taxi experience without having to look for change. It's great.
That is amazing.
Mm.
Okay, well, let's move on from kind of the national park. It sounds like the mountainous, the hikes to the beach for those people that love the beach like I do and like Mary Ellen does not. Do you have favorite coastal areas of Taiwan?
Yes. So I'm a little bit bitter about this. My mom took my brothers to go get scuba certified, all 3 of them, right after I left for college. And don't get me wrong, I have a hole in my eardrum, so I can't do it anyway. But I was like, did you have to do it right after I left? So, really good scuba in the southern part of the island. If you want to check that out, I'm not quite sure on technical details of that, but you definitely take the bullet train down. It's very easy to get to. The area is called Kenting. For the part that's on the mainland, there are a couple of small islands near about there that also have really nice scuba. And I believe there are other islands off the western coastline that are also fantastic for that. I have a friend who I believe worked in a hostel for a few years while she was working on Chinese degree or something like that and got scuba certified, did all these amazing things. So I think that's a fairly common thing. The more south you get, the more agricultural it kind of gets. And you'll see a lot of backpackers, students, expats, travelers, digital nomads in that kind of area. The northern part of the island has more rocky beaches. So they're very scenic and it's kind of fun to walk up and down, but they're not like a lounge and it's definitely cooler. So it's not necessarily where you want to go for that. But if you wanted to get to a beach fairly quickly from the Taipei northern areas, you can take one of the small trains and go to the northeast section. So Yilan is the province to the northeast, just south of the Geelong province. So when I say province, these are all like, 45 minutes drive across from each other kind of thing. So you can take a train out there. It's a slow train. I've done it before, but the views are really nice. I would say they're probably not the most like absolutely out of this world mind-blowing beaches I've ever seen in my life, but it's really cool to have a place that has a little bit of everything. If that makes
Mhm.
sense. They're like they're not the Maldives or something like that. It's not super shallow water, but it is very clean. A lot of people do like surfing out that way. So it depends on what kind of a beach, what kind of an ocean person you are.
Mm.
The lounge stuff is a little bit more south. The scenic stuff is north. So Mary Ellen, that actually might suit you quite well if you're not like a big lie on the beach kind of person. The
Right.
views are nice. Taiwan's defining trait is it's very mountainous. So you just have lots of,
Right up my alley.
yeah.
I love mountains and a beach together. I'm not opposed to beaches, but I just don't love sand and I don't like sitting still very often.
I understand
So,
that.
hiking along a trail that has a rocky beach or mountains and beach together, I love that. I can get down
Yeah,
with that. The ocean is beautiful.
that
I
makes
love
a
the
lot of sense.
sounds of waves and everything.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, so there's a little bit of everything for everyone, and there's also really nice lakes and streams and clean water and hiking trails. So there's just a lot to do. It's a very nice outdoorsy place to be, in addition to being a
Oh,
big city.
When you
city.
said clean water, it reminded me this is something we keep forgetting to ask, and we forgot to ask when we were interviewing with Kelly in our China episode. What's the water situation? Because we find it's different all over the world. Do you need to be drinking bottled water? Is the water filtration system there good? What's your recommendation?
I can't remember whether or not people drink tap water. So here's an interesting thing about Taiwan. It's way easier now to get cold water, but when I was growing up, it's a very big part of Chinese culture to drink warm water or hot water. So when I was a child and sweating my face off, I'm like, oh my God, why am I drinking 60-degree water or 100-degree water at Celsius? But I've gotten very used to it. And now you can get cold drinks anywhere. So, first of all, 7-Eleven exists. You never have to worry about it. If you're a bottled water kind of person, you can get bottled drinks anywhere you go. And the water generally, I would say, I think it's quite clean. My parents are kind of uh, water purists, so we've always had super super filtered built-in stuff in my house. But I think most places you go, they have a large machine. It's not like your traditional water fountains that we're used to, but they're like these big industrial metal machines, and you can usually get cold water, warm water, or hot water. So it's really nice. Actually, you can get ramen. You can make instant ramen anywhere you go in Taiwan,
Nice.
including at 7-Eleven. You buy a ramen bowl. They have a hot water spigot right there for you. They also have a microwave. You can cook anything.
Amazing. I love ramen. Love
So I
ramen.
love water. I drink it all the time. I don't remember ever having an issue getting water in Taiwan.
Okay. All right. Good to know.
Yes.
Overall, what would you say for English speakers? Unfortunately, here in America, so many of us only know English. We don't have nearly enough people that are dual language speakers. And I know that in general, some of the Asian countries with the characters and the writing system is just a little bit different. So it can be very intimidating as an English only speaker going to a country and thinking, oh goodness, am I going to be able to communicate at all? What would you say? Are there street signs in English, or do you just lean really heavily on translation apps? Are the people in Taiwan, do a lot of them speak English?
Yeah. So the exciting news is I'm actually pretty on top of this because I remember watching my cousins grow up and seeing when they learned English and everything. Kids start learning English in first grade now. So pretty
That's
much,
amazing.
I know. I know. The international language skills are intense. Now, I would say the degree to which people are fluent can be very different, especially if you went somewhere more rural. But I would say pretty much anyone under the age of 40, you'll probably be able to get by at a bare minimum. A lot of them will speak way more than you would think. And a lot of people in Taiwan have studied abroad somewhere and had to use English as a result. So they're super, super fluent. Um, the signs are almost always translated as well. They can be a little bit wonky about using the exact same translation everywhere, but I think they've gotten way better at unifying that in the last 25, 30 years. So you shouldn't have an issue. I think even if you're driving, Google Maps also has made it so easy for me to get anywhere in the world. Um, so even if I don't necessarily remember what the name is, if I plug in the directions or figure out where I want to go, I haven't had any issues with getting lost. And Taiwan is one of the least places I'd be concerned about that. I would say if you want to find out some old person's life story, you might struggle a bit, but food is not a problem. You should be able to order anywhere, especially if you're going to relatively touristy places. No problem. You'll find a lot of people who are very fluent.
Okay, I know in China, Google products don't always work as well because of, the different filters that they have in place. But in Taiwan, you're pretty good to go with Google, no problem.
Yeah, I don't know how it is in Hong Kong now, for instance. I haven't been in a few years, but Taiwan still currently totally separate. So own system, own everything. You don't need VPNs to get around.
Awesome.
Yeah, so
Okay.
really easy. And then I guess as far as things like food go, that might be the number one spot where you'd have a little bit more struggle. And that's only if you decide to go to the night market. They're probably not going to translate what the foods are. Um, but you can look up, there are tons of Instagram, TikTok, blog posts that will tell you what different types of things are. You can also kind of eyeball it because usually street food is very simple. It's like it's egg and tapioca starch. the number one things would probably be if you have a nut allergy or are gluten-free, just be a little bit more careful about what you're getting because, for instance, I have friends who are gluten-free, and soy sauce actually is
Mhm.
often made with wheat. So just keep that in mind. Soy sauce is generally in everything. There's a lot of wheat in a lot of things. Um, but if you have a severe food sensitivity, you're probably already pretty aware and on top of those things to begin with. The only other thing I would say is a little bit hidden is people do often use peanut oil. So if you have a peanut allergy,
Mm,
be a little bit more careful about that. Um, and probably stick with packaged foods because packaged foods are going to be pretty good about telling you what's in the ingredient list. Street food, you don't necessarily know as much.
for
But
sure.
I don't know that I've personally heard of anyone going to Taiwan and passing out. Also, if you did, Taiwan has a fantastic medical system. It's very affordable, they're very efficient, and they're generally very
Good
kind.
to know.
It is nationalized healthcare. So I remember reading a few years ago this Reddit post about someone who had a fairly severe emergency come up, like just a personal health thing. And they were like, it would have cost me thousands of dollars to get this taken care of in Taiwan. I think it was something like appendicitis or flare up of some issue they already had. I think they walked away with a bill of about $80. And
Oh
that's
my
out of
gosh. Goodness.
so I have done it before. Honestly, Taiwan's a great place for medical tourism. I got my last wisdom tooth out there. I was in and out of the clinic in 7 minutes and I paid $49, no insurance. I
What?
didn't even feel
No.
my anesthesia needle, not let alone the extraction. I was like, I'm pretty high pain tolerance, but I didn't even feel that. So they are just get in, get out.
That is incredible.
As somebody
Yeah.
who's about to pay like $3,500 for my kids' braces, that just makes me
Mm,
want to cry.
I know. I know. Well, okay. Braces are still expensive-ish there because it is
Okay,
still a cosmetic procedure everywhere. I
it's
know.
true.
I know. Our mouths, they're so expensive. But
It's
yes.
ridiculous. Well,
I
as we're
mean,
wrapping up, give us like 3 foods that people should not miss, like authentic foods that we might not have heard of that are just staples that we have to try if we're visiting.
okay. Um, this is something you will find pretty much anywhere you go to a night market. You go to Danshui, which is it's the last stop on the red line of the MRT, which is also a fun touristy spot to get out. It's kind of an old port city, so lots of street food as well. So number one, fried chicken. Um, it's not what you're thinking. It's usually a patty that's been smashed pretty flat, breaded on both sides. So it looks a whole lot like a tonkatsu pork chop, actually. And you just get it in a little envelope and you just munch it as you walk around. And it is so great. Children love
Yum.
this. You can get them to cut it up for you into strips so it's easier to eat, or you can get the whole thing smashed down in one giant patty and just walk around with it. Now that would be one that I think almost anyone can eat and enjoy. Kind of along those lines, you can get fried mushrooms. They're usually oyster mushrooms,
Ooh.
but they're breaded in more or less the same kind of thing. And you'll often find them together. You can get the chicken and you can often get mushrooms at the same time. But you just skewer them with little long toothpicks basically and eat them as you go. They're almost always seasoned with salt and a little bit of white pepper. So they have this like nice, savory, very fragrant taste. Number two, beef noodle soup is one of my favorite things of all time, and they have many different varieties. I guess kind of the most classic Taiwanese taste is it's usually not very spicy. It may have some tomato in it, and it may have some pickled veggies on it as well. So it's more of a complex flavor. It's not like the spiciest. I tend to like things really spicy, but that one has a really big spot in my heart. And you can find beef noodle anywhere, but there are some spots in Taipei that I think are known for cooking their broth for 72 hours. I think there's even one spot
Wow,
Mm.
that
72
has
hours.
a perpetual pot that's been going since the 40s. Like they just always have it simmering. They keep adding water. And you're not going to get sick because that thing is always being cooked, but there's like, it's a very complex flavor. I need to go hunt that one down. So number one, number two, and number three, bubble tea. Bubble tea's from Taiwan.
My
Um,
kid would love it.
yeah, and they have so many different flavors. So pretty much all the boba tea spots that you see in the U.S. and elsewhere, some of them are franchises. Coco's is one of the best known ones, and Coco's is the Taiwan franchise, I believe.
Okay.
But share tea, things like that, I believe those are all popping up everywhere. So Bubble tea is a little bit of that niche, like bougie thing that kids there love doing, kind of like coffee shops are here. So
Mm-hmm.
those are
Mm-hmm.
kind of the biggest ones, I would say. But I
Oh,
will
that's
also give you
perfect.
a list of top spots to visit as day trips from Taipei, if anyone goes for a day or 3 days or something like that. So Tanshui, like I said, it's spelled Tamshui. It's the last stop on the red line. Go out that way, and just make an afternoon of it. There's lots of fun little things to do. Like there are little, it's almost like carnivals, where there's little games to play. There are little claw machines, buy some snacks. It's a good spot to get cheap souvenirs and have a leisurely afternoon. The spot I mentioned earlier, Jiufen, is Jiufen. It's kind of on the opposite side, but also north. That one you have to take the bus, but you type it into Google Maps, it will tell you the best way for you to get there from wherever you are. And that one is the old mining facility that was later converted into kind of more of a locals touristy spot. There are hot springs in Beitong, so
Ooh, lovely.
you. I believe there are hot springs throughout Taiwan, but this one's super easy to get to from the city. Just make sure you go to the ones that are like public hot springs. Because last time I went, I did wander into one of those more Japanese style. It was just me and a bunch of old naked ladies, and it was fantastic. Like, it was. I wouldn't say it's chill. It was actually quite hot, but it was really amazing experience that I wasn't expecting. My parents are like, "You did what?" I'm like, this is, but they do have like outdoor pools also where you just wear like normal swimsuits and everybody's just hanging out. Yeah. And then the night markets. There are some popular ones. Pretty much all of them are decent. They're all kind of a destination, but also a lot of young students, like college kids, will go there and get dinner there. It's just food there is very affordable. There are also Michelin restaurants. So if that's your thing, make reservations ahead of time. But I've been to several of them. If you really love French food, they have a lot of good French ones, but I really like the ones that are unique twists on Taiwan food and cuisine
Yeah.
and local stuff that's available.
Yeah.
Incredible. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for sharing your home country. I mean, that's just incredible. A place that you're so passionate about, that you love spending time, and it seems like a gift to learn about it from someone who is more of a local and knows so much, has all the insider tips, and really knows it like the back of your hand. So we appreciate you sharing it with us.
Thank you so much for letting me talk about it. Clearly, I love talking about Taiwan.
Yeah, I feel like we could do a part 2 probably, and we could just keep going. But we really appreciate you spending an hour of your time with us today. We hope people are excited about yet another incredible destination that maybe is a little underrated. We're having a lot of fun highlighting these destinations that don't get talked about enough.
Likewise, everyone is welcome to hit me up for food tips, hotels, things that I love. I will talk about Taiwan endlessly.
Yes, well, good. Then tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, usually Instagram's a good spot to find me. I've not been posting as much lately, but it's still my main outlet. So that's Katherine Fangirling. So just my first name, my last name, and then just a little whimsy.
I love it so much. And don't forget, you guys, you can find her articles over on Business Insider. So we'll link up all kinds of good things in the show notes. I'm sure we'll have some stuff to add in there to help you guys planning your trip and to make sure you can go follow Katherine. And Katherine, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you again for having me.
Always
See
a
you next
pleasure.
time, guys.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this show today, please consider writing us a review or clicking 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please subscribe and follow along so that you never miss an episode.
You can follow the podcast on Instagram or YouTube at Wonderland on Points Podcast. You can find me on Instagram at Family Travel for the Win with the number 4.
And you can find me on Instagram at Points to Wonderland.
If you're thinking about getting a new travel rewards credit card, consider using the links in our show notes. Using our links helps to support us and keep our podcast going so we can provide you with all the latest tips and tricks when it comes to traveling on points.
And if you aren't sure which card is right for you, shoot us an email at wonderlandonpoints@gmail.com. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you here next time.